Greetings, YouTube. Today we're taking a look at the Eafengrow EF226. The first thing you're going to notice is it's in a very unusual profile in its folded position. This is not a common looking knife. You're also going to notice that it is a single position tip up carry. I still don't understand why they don't have every knife in the world with the option of going right hand or left hand, particularly if it's flipper, because that makes the deployment universal, but I don't design knives. I got this in the jade undyed G10 scales, and you'll notice that it has some really nice planing on here. I guess you could almost call that swedging. This is an open construction. It has two machined standoffs. The clip actually functions quite well. I like the design when they have these little two offsets like that, just like little cylinders that hold the clip off. I actually think I prefer that to a loop, but I don't see it all that common. It does make producing the clip much simpler as well, because it's essentially a flat piece of steel which is then given a bend. So this is actually probably easier to produce with less machining, but I could be wrong there. It has an unusual, you can very noticeable, it's got unusual cutouts in the blade, which is kind of nice as well. Has a nice pivot, which is a dark blue, and these are just star drives. It's nothing all that particular interesting, but I like the kind of almost iron cross vibe in there. You'll notice that the flipping lever is really high. You know, a lot of the times in your flippers, it's more perpendicular, but this is really high up here. And I got this because of the unusual shape and also the unusual blade profile. So let's open this puppy up. Okay, there we go. Now, I did have to give that a little bit of an oomph because of that unusual position. Now, you're going to notice right off the bat, that is an unusual overall design. This gives it a very almost organic vibe to it. It made me think of some of the Dean Brothers artwork from the 1970s. You might have seen that their work on like some of the Yes albums. That made me think of that. Very pronounced swedge. This is a flat grind to a secondary bevel. I prefer flat grinds. Though the flat grind isn't actually perfectly flat, because it does come up here in a very gentle curve to get to the full thickness right there. There is no real sharpening choil, but because of this shape, your sharpening is not going to be an issue, because you're going to be able to go right into space as opposed to having to worry about bottoming out on something. So your hand is definitely not going to go up on this one, because when you're holding it like this, your hand is very firmly in position. Unfortunately, it's a weird angle, because you're not, it's just, it feels, it's like the point is not where you think it's supposed to be because of this shape. I didn't really think about that before I bought it, but it really is an awkward tool to hold when it comes to using. Now, it's a fine one like this. If you're going to do a surgical scalpel cut, you're just fine. And it came out of the box with a reasonably sharp edge, nothing to write home about. Sorry for the noise in the background. I do have cats. The profile is what sold me on this. That was just that handle, that blade profile, those cutouts. And because of this ribbing, I don't feel concerned about this being here. I don't think this is going to weaken it in the least. But it's just so sci-fi vibe going on here. You know what I mean? And that really did sell me on it. However, in operation, I don't like the position of the blade when I'm holding it. Even though the quality of the knife overall is great, there's no blade play in either direction. You have a nice lockup, but you're only about a 25%, maybe a little bit more in there. The scales come around the liners, which is nice, so you're not actually seeing the liners. Having sculpted scales so that the liners sit into them is a really nice feature. I think that's a nice step. The scales, the liners are not skeletonized. And accessing the liner lock is easy, because this scale is slightly sculpted out so that it's very simple to get to. That's not a problem. But because of the position of this, it makes it a very awkward flipper. You're really coming up on this. It's almost a position like that, but it's sharper. It comes to a point, and I find it very uncomfortable. Now, I can still do it, of course, but I do have to give it a little bit of a flick to get it to come out without having to put excess strain on my finger while doing so. So this is definitely not something I'm going to be putting into my everyday carry rotation. But I do like the design as far as its aesthetics concerned, so it's definitely going to stay in my collection. It's an unusual knife. It is not going to be for everyone. If anyone out there who carries this and loves it and thinks it's the best knife in the world, tell me what is it you love about this. I'd like to know. Do you find the position of holding it just perfect? Do you find that flipper position to be just what you've always wanted? Or have you tried it and also found it a little bit wanting? Let's talk about what we think about the EF226.